What if a single whisper from your body, a tremble in your voice, a pang in your chest, held the secret to whether you'd see tomorrow's dawn or fade into an endless night? Not a loud cry, not a thunderous alarm, but a faint, fleeting murmur you might shrug off as nothing. Tell me, why do we so often ignore these fragile signals, letting them drift away like smoke, when they could be the thin line between life and its sudden end? I dare you to pause and wonder, what's stopping you from listening right now? Welcome to Stillness Unfolded, where the shadows of existence unravel under the torchlight of the Buddha's ancient wisdom. I'm your guide, a monk who's gazed into the abyss of impermanence, and today, I'm pulling you into a tale too urgent to ignore. In this video, we'll plunge into 7 whispers your body screams in silence, signs like words that twist on your tongue, a heart that grips you in the dark, or a breath that vanishes when you least expect it. These aren't just aches or quirks. They're the body's desperate drumbeat, pounding out warnings that could steal your next laugh, your next sunrise, if you don't act. We'll walk through stories of souls who teetered on the edge, fuse the healer's sharp truth with the Dharma's deep calm, and uncover why hearing these cries might be the boldest, most rebellious act of love you'll ever dare. So, grip your seat. Let's chase these mysteries together and face what hides in plain sight. If this sparks even a flicker in you, smash that like button, subscribe to Stillness Unfolded, and drop your thoughts below. Your fire keeps this channel blazing, pushing us to craft stories that shake you awake. This isn't a casual stroll, it's a treasure hunt packed with revelations. Watch every second, or you'll miss the gold buried within. Sign 1. Slurred speech or facial drooping, the voice that falters. Have you ever heard your own voice stumble, as if the words you've spoken 1,000 times suddenly betray you, like a river tripping over stones it once flowed past with ease? Or gazed into a mirror to find your smile crooked, one side drooping like a leaf in autumn, heavy with the weight of an unseen wind? This is no mere quirk of age, no fleeting shadow of fatigue. It is the body's urgent whisper, perhaps signaling a stroke, a silent thief creeping through the delicate pathways of your mind, stealing what connects thought to tongue, memory to meaning. I think of Tuan, a layman who once sat with me beneath the temple's banyan tree, its roots sprawling like the years he'd lived. At 70, he dismissed his tangled words as the burden of a long day, a mind weary from the sun's heat. But his daughter, her eyes sharp with a love honed by years of watching him, saw the droop in his face, a smile once broad now halved, and rushed him to the healer. A clot, they said, had begun its quiet theft, each minute stripping away countless cells, each second a thread unraveling from the tapestry of his being. In our practice, we sit in stillness, watching the breath, the thoughts, the fleeting dance of life as it rises and falls. But what of the body's voice, that sacred echo of the soul? When it falters, it tolls like a bell in the silence, asking, "Will you heed me?" The Buddha taught us mindfulness, not a passive gaze, but a living presence that moves when truth demands it. To wait is to cling to the illusion of permanence. To act is to honor the impermanence that defines us. If your words twist, if your face shifts as though a mask has slipped, do not turn away. Call for aid. For in that moment, compassion is not a quiet prayer. It is a swift hand reaching through the dark. Tell me, dear ones, when has your voice whispered something you dared not hear? Share it below, for in your story, others may find the courage to listen to their own. Sign 2. Sudden chest tightness or pain, the heart's quiet plea. Picture a stillness after the day's toil, your hands resting, the world softening around you like dusk settling over the fields. Then, a heaviness blooms in your chest, a dull ache, a curious pressure, not loud like a storm but persistent as a stream wearing down stone. Is it the meal you ate, the years piling upon your shoulders, or something deeper, something alive with urgency? This could be your heart, that faithful drum beating since your first breath, murmuring for your care as a child might tug at a parent's sleeve. I recall a woman of 75 who tended her roses with a tender hand, her fingers tracing petals as if they were prayers. One evening, as she sipped her tea by the window, a tightness gripped her chest, not sharp, but heavy, like a stone laid gently upon her ribs. "I've worked too hard today," she thought, brushing it aside with a smile, her pride a shield against worry. But her son, sensing the shadow in her breath, the faint tremble in her voice, took her to the healer. A mild heart attack, they found. A whisper that could have silenced her forever had dawn arrived without help. The Buddha spoke of the heart as a wellspring of compassion, a mirror reflecting our deepest truths. Yet when it whispers in distress, how often do we silence it with pride, saying, "I'm fine," as if strength lies in denial? In the temple, I've seen many cling to toughness, their chests tight with unspoken fears, only to crumble when the body could bear no more. True strength is humility, the courage to pause and ask, "What does my heart need?" If your chest tightens, if a strange weight lingers like a guest who will not leave, do not wait. Seek the healer. For love begins here, in the quiet act of listening to the life pulsing within you. Why do we turn from these whispers, when they seek only to keep us near, to hold us a little longer in this fragile dance of being? Sign 3. Shortness of breath without exertion, the breath that wavers. Breath is our anchor, is it not? In meditation, we follow its rise and fall, a rhythm as steady as the tides, a thread tying us to the present moment. But what if that rhythm falters without cause? When you sit still, the world calm around you, yet gasp as if the air has grown thin, as if the sky itself has pressed down upon your chest. This is no passing weariness, no echo of a day's labor. It may be a clot, a thief lurking in the lungs, stealing the very essence that sustains you. I think of Duk, an old friend who loved his evening pipe by the fire, the smoke curling upward like incense offered to the night. One evening, his breath shortened, tight as a knot drawn taut, each inhale a struggle against an unseen weight. "Just the smoke," he muttered, waving it off with a laugh, his eyes still bright with the stubbornness of youth. But his wife, her heart alert as a deer in the forest, saw the pallor in his face and drove him to the healer. A clot, small but deadly, had lodged within his lungs. One more night, they said, and he might have slipped beyond us, his pipe left cold by the hearth. In the sutras, breath is life's thread, fragile yet sacred, a bridge between this moment and the next. When it wavers unbidden, it is a prayer for help, a call to pause, to listen, to act. How often do we dismiss it, thinking, "It will pass," as if certainty were ours to hold? Yet the Buddha taught us to see impermanence, to release the grasp of false security. If your breath struggles while you rest, do not linger in doubt. Seek help, for when breath fades, so does clarity, so does presence, so does the light of this precious life. The third whisper revealing your body's intent is its rhythm, how it flows when all is well, yet stumbles when danger nears, a silent plea woven into the air you breathe. What has your breath taught you in its silence, dear friend? Share it below, for in our shared truths, we find the strength to heed these quiet calls. Sign 4. Unusual confusion or sudden disorientation, the mind's silent storm. The mind is a still pond, its surface a mirror reflecting the truth of each moment, clear, calm, unbroken. But what if a storm stirs its depths, scattering thoughts like petals torn from a lotus by an unseen wind? Sudden confusion, forgetting the day, the place, the familiar faces that once anchored you, is not a gentle fading of age. It may be an infection, a stroke, a hidden tide rising within, flooding the shores of your awareness. I recall Lynn, a widow of 82, whose wit once lit our gatherings like a lantern in the dusk. One morning, she stood lost in her garden, the hours a blur, the roses she'd tended for decades now strangers to her gaze. "I'm tired," she murmured, her voice soft as a falling leaf, but her nephew saw the fog in her eyes, a haze that dulled their usual spark, and sought the healer without delay. An infection, they found, had clouded her mind, a quiet invader turning clarity to chaos. Swift care brought her back, her laughter once more a melody in our circle, but delay could have dimmed her light forever, leaving only silence where her wisdom once flowed. The Buddha said, "The mind is the forerunner of all things, a river guiding our words, our deeds, our very being. When it drifts, lost in its own currents, we must pause and ask, what stirs this storm?" Too often, we blame the years, shrugging off these signs as the inevitable weight of time. But wisdom is not in waiting, not in turning a blind eye. It is in watching, in acting with love. If your thoughts blur like ink spilled on parchment, or if a loved one's words wander as though seeking a path long forgotten, do not judge. Seek answers. For in that fog lies a call to compassion, a chance to restore the pond's stillness before the storm consumes it. What storms have you faced in silence, dear friend? Share it below, for in our reflections, we find the strength to face the tempests within and without. Sign 5. Severe or sudden abdominal pain, the body's thunder. Pain is a teacher, sharp and clear, its lessons etched in every pang. But when it strikes the belly like thunder, sudden, fierce, unyielding, rolling through you like a tempest across the plains, it is no trifling matter to be dismissed. It could be a rupture, a twist, a wound crying out from the depths, its voice too loud to ignore. I knew Hugh, a woodcarver of 70, whose hands shaped beauty from timber, each stroke a testament to a life of craft and care. One night, a stab in his gut felled him, a blade of agony cutting through the quiet of his home. Indigestion, he growled, lying still on his mat, his pride a wall against the truth. By morning, he could not rise, his face pale as the dawn, his strength drained like water from a cracked jar. His daughter, her heart trembling with a daughter's love, called the healer, who found his intestines twisted, blood-starved, a knot of suffering tightening with each hour. Another moment's delay, and he might have been lost to us, his tools left silent, his stories unfinished. In our practice, we meet pain with curiosity, not fear, observing its rise and fall like waves on the shore. But when it roars like this, it is not a lesson to be born in stillness. It is a summons to be answered. Why do we so often turn away, as if silence were courage, as if enduring were a virtue? The body is a temple, yes, but even temples crack, their stones crying out when the earth shifts beneath them. If your belly thunders, sharp and strange, do not wait for the storm to pass. Go, seek. For in action lies peace, the peace of knowing you've heard, you've heeded. The fifth whisper revealing your body's intent is its urgency, how it demands your ear when all else fades, a call as clear as lightning splitting the night. Sign 6. Persistent vomiting or vomiting blood, the body's rejection. When the body casts out what it holds, food, water, even its own blood, it speaks of a rift within, a fracture deep beneath the surface. Persistent vomiting, or the sight of blood dark as earth, grainy as rust in a forgotten well, is no small upset to be waved away. It may be an ulcer, a tear, a silent bleed weeping within the shadows of your being. I think of Na, a grandmother of 78, whose kitchen fed generations, her hands weaving love into every dish. One evening, she vomited after supper, a sudden upheaval that left her trembling. Then she saw it, rust in her bowl, a stain like the earth after rain. "Something I ate," she whispered, her voice frail but stubborn, unwilling to trouble those she'd cared for so long. But her grandson, his eyes wide with a youth's instinct, saw her pallor, the sweat beading on her brow, and called for aid. An ulcer, worsened by years of pain pills taken to ease her aching joints, had opened within her. One more night, the healer said, and she might have faded, her stove cold, her laughter a memory. In the Dharma, letting go is freedom, a release of clinging that brings us closer to peace. But when the body purges against its will, it is not liberation. It is alarm, a cry from the depths that demands our gaze. How often do we minimize, saying, "I'll wait," as if time were a balm for all wounds? Compassion demands we see clearly, that we meet this rejection not with denial but with care. If your stomach rebels, if blood stains your breath, act. You are not a burden. You are a life worth saving, a flame worth shielding from the wind. Why do we hesitate when the body pleads so plainly, when its voice rises like a river breaking its banks? Tell me, dear ones, what has your body refused to hold, and how did you answer its call? Sign 7. High fever with stiff neck and sensitivity to light, the fire within. Fever is a flame, a quiet ember that cleanses what harms, burning away the shadows that linger in the body's hidden corners. But when it blazes with a neck too stiff to bend, as if bound by invisible chains, and eyes that recoil from light. The sun itself a blade piercing through the haze. It is no common heat to be soothed with rest. This may be meningitis, a fire consuming the mind's sacred walls, its tendrils racing toward the seat of thought, of memory, of all that makes you you. I recall Tien, a teacher of 76, whose mornings were spent with books, his fingers tracing lines of wisdom as the dawn painted his room gold. One day, his head pounded, a relentless drum echoing within his skull, his neck locked, unyielding as stone. The light he once welcomed now stabbed at his eyes with cruel precision. A cold, he thought, his voice a whisper against the growing storm, until a friend, her heart sharp with care, drove him to the healer. An infection, they found, raced toward his brain, a silent invader that could have claimed him in hours. Swift care saved him, but time was thin, a thread stretched taut between life and the void. In our teachings, fire is craving, a metaphor for the desires that bind us to suffering. Yet here, it is real, a blaze within, a literal heat that threatens the temple of consciousness. The Buddha urged us to tend the vulnerable, to shield the fragile flame of life from winds that seek to snuff it out. When fever spikes, when the body recoils as if the world itself has turned hostile, it is a call to act, not to ponder in the stillness of doubt. If this flame touches you, do not wait. Do not cling to the hope that it will fade on its own. Seek help, for in that urgency lies the chance to return to peace, to reclaim the quiet clarity of a mind unburned. The seventh whisper revealing your body's intent is its resistance, how it fights to shield you, even as it falters beneath the fire's weight. What fires have you faced, dear friend, and how did you answer their roar? Share it below, for in our shared struggles, we light the path for one another. Here we stand, breathless, having danced through 7 whispers, the voice that stumbles, the heart that clenches, the breath that flees, the mind that storms, the belly that thunders, the body that rejects, the fire that consumes. But now, I ask you, what's burning in your chest as these echoes fade? Why do we let these whispers grow into roars before we dare to turn and face them? Why do we gamble with the only life we've got? I've sat beneath the Bodhi tree, watching the wind carry leaves and lives alike, and I wonder, how many of us have let these signs slip through our fingers, only to grasp at regrets too late? At stillness unfolded, we've ignited a spark, not just to teach, but to jolt you alive, to make you feel the pulse of every moment you're still here. These aren't warnings to fear, they're torches lighting a path, to seize this fleeting existence, to fight for every breath with a warrior's heart. So, will you let this flame catch? Keep it roaring. Slam that like button if this hit you hard. Subscribe to Stillness Unfolded to fuel this wild ride. And shout your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what shook you, what you've ignored, what you crave next. Your words are the wind that lifts this channel higher, forging content that doesn't just sit there, but grabs you by the soul. This video's a wildfire of truth. Every beat matters, so don't you dare skip a spark. Watch it through to feel its full heat. The Buddha said, health is the greatest gift, but it's yours to claim, not to lose in the dark. Let these whispers sear into you, not as dread, but as a call to rise, to hear, to live fiercely. Until our paths cross again, may your fire burn bright, your ears catch every rustle, your spirit defy the silence. Thank you for stepping into this blaze with us. Now, go, listen like your life depends on it, because it just might.